21 years has passed since Crash Bandicoot captured all our hearts with his goofy personality, lack of intelligence, and his plethora of stunts that I have come to only expect from an anthropomorphic Bandicoot. I'd love to say Crash can be forgiven for this relentless trial he puts you through in this new and improved experience, but can you really forgive this adorable face? You may feel a sense of reassurance that the obstacles that await your journey wouldn't be so bad after all. Well, that trust of our favorite mascot and companion is quickly betrayed when you come to realize these remasters of the classics are not only ruthless in difficulty, but are no longer the Crash games we knew. Several years ago, the gameplay of Crash Bandicoot offered its own unique spin to set itself apart from the other 3D platforming games available at the time. Crash Bandicoot was created with the intention of becoming an iconic PlayStation gaming mascot to compete alongside Sega's Sonic the Hedgehog and Nintendo's Plumberman series. Of course, that exclusivity to PlayStation didn't quite pan out, as Naughty Dog sold the franchise to Activision. And you know what they do to games. Looking at the Insane Trilogy release, it's hard to imagine Crash was any different as your nostalgic memories put a polish on the blocky PS1 classics. Does Crash still capture the magic you felt? Does Crash still retain the same identity? Has Crash Bandicoot become Dark Souls? When I think of platforming games, I think of something that's very accessible to casual gamers. Something that you can play along with your 2-year-old daughter. I think of infinite lives and collecting fun prizes. I just want to shut my brain off and have some fun, you know? Modern platforming games have picked up on this quite well with the non-threatening enemies. Games should guide me through levels as passively as possible with a sufficient amount of level ups and upgrades so that no one should feel left out. It's never fun to die in a video game. It's especially not fun to get a game over just to be forced to hear the diabolical, mocking laughters of Uka Uka. This original trilogy came at an early time where 3D platforming games weren't allowed to be fun, at a time where all the good platformers were made by Nintendo. Crash Bandicoot, by today's standards, and in a completely unrelated genre, is Dark Souls in the execution of all its core game concepts. The game is a ruthless, trial-and-error experience that will leave you pounding the ground with your fists, not unlike your first experience with Ornstein and Smo. Generally, what leads to your many fateful ends are the sluggish controls, slow gameplay, and deadly traps. In Dark Souls, my worst enemy are the unavoidable pitfalls. Time and time again, I'd find myself falling to my tragic death for no apparent reason. Nearly all the traps in the game look like they were directly ripped from Sen's Fortress, only more plentiful and even more destructive. In Crash Bandicoot, any injury is a one-hit kill. The game punishes you by making you traverse unscathed through an overabundance of traps, which, as we all know, is impossible. But what about the story? Has Crash become Dark Souls, even in the story? Crash Bandicoot has you fighting to save the world as an extinct species of Bandicoot created by the mad scientist Neo-Periwinkle Cortex. This antagonist of the Crash series is described as being short-tempered, reckless, and having no apparent conscience. Similarly, in Dark Souls, the near-extinct hollowed human race is subjugated by the lords who have come before you, and you fight to save, or not save, the world. The antagonist is Lord Gwyn, who is also short-tempered, reckless, and with no apparent conscience. He nearly wiped out every dragon with his temper, he cursed all of humanity with his recklessness, and screwed him over with his lack of conscience. Gwyn is the last thing that stands in your way, being the final boss of the game, as in the case with Neo-Cortex. Neo-Cortex's similarities don't just end with Gwyn. Take a look at the Duke of the Archives, Seath the Scaleless Dragon. Him, like Neo-Cortex, are mad scientist stereotypes who created anthropomorphic abominations such as these. Prior to the events that unfold in Dark Souls, Seath was obsessed with finding the primordial crystal so that he can achieve the immortality the other dragons possessed. In Crash, Neo-Cortex's primary motivation is, well,
crystals, of course. No!
A common theme shared throughout the Dark Souls games is that humankind's greatest weaknesses are their powerful emotions, which make them human. Bosses that exhibit these strong, human-like emotions generally tend to drop something called humanity, and we are to infer this humanity is what led them to their cruel fates, fueled by inhibited traces of human ambition. This humanity adds to your stat counter in the top, just like the extra lives you collect in Crash Bandicoot. Wumpa Fruit can be seen as souls. When Crash dies in bonus levels, he loses all his Wumpa Fruit, causing you to retrace your steps and collect the fruit again. This is not unlike losing your souls in Dark Souls. Crash Bandicoot's Aku Aku pickup very much resembles the Tears of Denial spell in Dark Souls 3. Something similar was also in Dark Souls 2, known just as Denial. This mask gives you one last chance to live after a fatal blow. Another interesting similarity between the two games is that no matter if you drown or fall into a pit hole, Aku Aku won't bother saving you. This is the same exact case with Dark Souls. Tears of Denial won't help you much if you fall to your death. Another similarity I discovered were these warp rooms in Cortex Strikes Back, which essentially is the Nexus in Demon Souls. You also warp between levels in Crash Bandicoot Warped, similar to how you warp between bonfires in Dark Souls. Crash Bandicoot, while silly and cartoonish in presentation, is completely unable to nail its own identity apart from Dark Souls. If you really think about it, Crash is like the Knight Artorias, who lost himself to the humanity-fueled abyss. If you look closely at the way Artorias moves, it's very animal-like, almost Bandicoot in nature. His spin attack is identical to Crash Bandicoot's staple spin attack as well. There's no question that the game mechanics and story in Dark Souls are inspiring to Crash, but I simply cannot stand by and watch a great game series get tainted by the Dark Soul. While Crash Bandicoot N. Sane Trilogy looks and sounds beautiful and is clearly a labor of love, Vicarious Visions should have taken a note from Nintendo and allowed us an option to play the game in casual mode, as in the case with Yoshi's Woolly World. To me, platformers are about instant gratification. I want to be able to soar through levels with ease. We need the ability to revive ourselves. Regenerating health wouldn't hurt either. Remember that little cloud thing in Mario Kart that hooks you and places you right back on track? It wouldn't take too long to implement something like this, and you wouldn't have to endure the game's lengthy loading screens. In case your short-term memory is poor, like mine, it's wonderful to have all these little hint reminders of what to do in blatant sight. I really appreciated the Last Guardian's button prompts reminding me what I had to do. Even if I was already doing it, it was fine. It's reassuring knowing that I'm on the right path and likely doing something right. Lastly, I appreciate a large, easy-to-read controller overlay on how to specifically control the game just in case I forget. These simple considerations could fix platformers forever without them devolving into yet another Dark Souls from an unlikely developer. There's no doubt this roguelike style will appeal to some of the more hardcore gamers out there, and even other fans of the Souls series. But it will most likely frustrate newcomers to the series looking for a good time, who want to see what everyone else is fussing about. After some time of playing, if you haven't given up by then, you'll realize that not only is Crash Bandicoot N. Sane Trilogy harder than Dark Souls, but it has nothing more to offer outside the Souls formula of unfair and punishing deaths.
So hey viewers, Fungo here. Long time no see. I would like to quickly apologize for the drought of content lately. There was a lot of stuff going on in my personal and financial life in which I don't think wouldn't be very fun to talk about, but trust me, I really owe a heck of a lot to my dedicated Patreon supporters who stuck with me. I can't even begin to express my gratitude for that kind of loyalty. Without all of you, I wouldn't have been able to get through all I got through in my life. So as per usual, I sincerely want to thank these following 5 people for pledging their monthly support to this channel. Staltic, Nasser H, Miami Ink Vampire, Ivy Toby, and Jacob San Pietro. And a very special thanks to the following champions:
the legendary Rain and Michael, the heroic Tyler Hunter, Jack Bristow and Staltic. The Elite, Andreas Birnbaumer, Hjortra S. Hjartarson, Born to Die 3, Nasser H., Miami Ink Vampire, and Jacob San Pietro.